Welcome, everybody, to the CFF List year-to-date review. We're looking at the players who are on the top of the leaders list through week 5, and we're also here to make our predictions for the best and worst performers from those year-to-date leaders lists for the upcoming week 6, which is a huge bye week, as you will see, and as you already know, as you dug for waiver picks throughout the week. I'm Jay Mill. I've got my partner, Willie B, as usual. How's everything going, Willie?
Looks like I'm getting ready to hit that mid-season form if I haven't already. So good.
Yeah, I know you in the week 5 results. We've got them up here. You can see Willie had 11 points. I had 4 points. We do a scoring Olympic style here. For every player we accurately guess correctly for finishing the best or the worst, we get 3 points. If we predict a player to finish best or worst and they finish second best or second worst, we get 2 points. And we get 1 point if they finish third best or third worst per our predictions. And Willie, yeah, following a kind of a double down week last week for both of us. Looks like you've bounced back and with an 11-point week, much closer now for the rest of the way here as we are at the halfway mark of the season. It's 32-26 for the season, so good to see you back in form. The good thing about your bars is you're kind of steadily making progress. You've gone from 4 points to 5 points to 6 points to 11 points. And on the other hand, I've gone in the last 3 weeks from 15 to 5 to 4. So one of us is going in the right direction, but fortunately, I still hold my lead. We'll see if, this week, though, you can make up some more ground on me or if I can try to pull away again.
Yep, always time for you to bounce back, so it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, although we make it a competition, our goal is for both of us to do well, because if we do well, that means we've said some things that make sense and have helped others that might be listening. So we have a friendly competition here, but the goal of what we're talking about with the year-to-date review and our best worst predictions is to just give you an idea of what we think is going to happen in the upcoming week, and also for the remainder of the season, based on kind of who we feel is in or out of the top 16 list that might be for real and who might be a fluke. So with that, let's take a look. We'll kind of remind everybody where we scored our points as we look back at the previous week. And on the screen now, we have last week's top 16 wide receivers, which you will see. We did not do too well as far as predictions here. This had to be the worst overall prediction category, so I'm extremely happy we're getting rid of it first. Starting with me, I think not only did I have Barnes here as my prediction for the best wide receiver from Appalachian State. He was also one of my waiver picks who got me 0 points in the waiver watch this week. So after a couple of really big weeks, I thought Jaden Barnes was the real deal. He was getting a ton of targets, I think 8 to 10 targets a game, and then suddenly, fell to like 4 targets against Boise State, who wasn't necessarily, that tough against the pass, so it seemed, but certainly held him down. Same with you. You picked Chase Hendricks, who had been pretty consistent, and he finished third worst. He still at least got you 9.5 points. Nothing is as bad as picking a guy to be the best and he gets a 0. But Chase Hendricks just seemed to have a down week in terms of the targets also went down for him, and then Omar Cooper was my prediction for worst. Can't say he had a great week. He had probably just a mediocre week there at 15.8 points. And I was looking at that. He had the big game a couple weeks ago, I think in the 50s. A lot of people jumped on him. We were a little more hesitant, thinking that was definitely an outlier. It was just unclear kind of what range he would fall in. And he followed that 50 points up with like a 19, and then now you're seeing him here at 15. I think this is where he's going to be, Willie. What do you think? I think he is kind of that 15 to 18 points a week guy. the last 3 weeks have certainly proven that Indiana is going to target him as the clear number two receiver at Indiana. He's got playmaker ability, as we discussed a couple weeks ago. So, if you've got him in best ball, God bless you, because you're going to have some probably 30, 35-point games, a couple more for the rest of the season. It's just going to be hard to predict where they are. And I think what you see this week with 15.8 is kind of his standard for the remainder of the season and what you can expect. What do you think, Willie?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if anything, I think Surratt's gonna, come and take his spot.
Right.
So
And move his way up the list, you're saying?
right, right,
Yeah, and I think,
absolutely.
and when we flip to the other slide, you'll see he's back on the rise. He was on the chart last week with Cooper. He fell off for week 5, but he's definitely back this week. Another disappointment, but going against a tough team, was Ian Strong. Only produced 9.6 points. I do think you see him stick around the top 20. Might be in and out, kind of holding on to a 16 spot this week. I think down from number 9, but I think you'll see him stick around. And then Voisin, kind of jumping around here. Voisin was the number 16 player on the board, and he was your pick for the worst. And you did get a point there because he only finished with 9.5 also. And I don't think that was going to be enough to keep him around on the top 16. But that's another name that I think you could expect to come back. What do you think on Voisin, Will? You expect to see him back in the top 16 at some point?
Um, I think so. I'm really surprised, and maybe it's because of the running back situation. I thought maybe North Texas might sneak up in here, or um, let's see. I'm looking maybe Concepcion to come and take his spot. So I'm gonna say no. I'll say no on
We've
him.
seen the last of Voisin in the top 16.
I think so.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see. Pointing out the best performances, just to make sure we cover those guys. Makai Lemon, you're going to notice on the next slide, was going to take a huge leap from number 12. We'll save it for where he ended up, but he had 40.1 points, and was the second best wide receiver last week overall. The number one receiver among this top 16 group. The second best performance was Danny Scudero. Sometimes you look back at these, Willie, and I was looking at this, and you say, why didn't we see some of these picks that seem obvious? Like Scudero was playing the 120th ranked Stanford, as far as Fantrax's rating for giving up points to wide receivers.
I think it's because Stanford played so well the week before.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Also, it kind of seemed like a little didn't seem real that they were 120th against receivers, but
Right.
Scudero, uh, he got his points, 36.5. So he and Lemon, you're going to both see shoot way up here. But the other one, I was thinking, like Jordan Tyson going against 103rd ranked TCU, we didn't give him any credit. Neither one of us picked him, and he you know, comes out with a 32.6 point game. So those were your top three: Lemon, Scudero, and Tyson. And again, Scudero and Tyson seem pretty obvious after the fact. Um, but as I say that, Mario Craver sitting there at number one, going against 91st ranked Auburn. So, and that actually didn't work out at all. So he only got 7.4. So it made me feel better to see that Craver only had 7.4 against 91st ranked Auburn, when I'm sitting there looking at the fact that Tyson and Hendricks seemed like or Tyson and Scudero seemed like such obvious picks at the end of the day. But it just goes to show you that you know you can look at the numbers all you want. Sometimes it's going to work out in your favor. Sometimes it's not. We're taking some guesses here once in a while.
Right. And then we probably just need to be sticking to what these teams are as far as their rankings are concerned.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And with that, we will move into the updated top 16, where I mentioned Makai Lemon took a huge leap, moving from number 12 to number one. Uh, no receivers averaging a spectacular number right now. The number one receiver here with Lemon is 26.6, followed by Jordan Tyson at 26.3. What I failed to mention on the previous slide is Cade Harris continues to make me, think he is the new Heidenreich. He had another 22-point game, so he dropped from 2 to 3, but he's still maintaining a top 3 status as an Air Force player as an Air Force wide receiver. Who would ever thought we'd have a number 3 wide receiver from Air Force here, Willie?
Then no, not me.
Yeah. Um, and then, so look, it makes perfect sense. The 4th ranked wide receiver is Danny Scudero. So the top 3 receivers from the top 16 last week now occupy the number 1, the number 2, and the number 4 spot here. Chris Brazell from Tennessee drops from 3 to 5. Jeremiah Smith had a solid game in the 20s. He drops from 4 to 6. So these are all guys that kind of maintain the status they had. But you did see Craver drop from 1 to 7. Bo Sparks is in about the same spot. Cooper's dipping. He fell from 6 to 10. I think he's got a bye, so he'll stick around another week. But I think you'll see Cooper disappear here in 2 weeks. But you do see his teammate Surratt popping in at number 13. I think they end up switching places. You see Surratt continue to rise. The biggest additions here, you had what do we have? We have 3 wide receivers out, which was Barnes from App State, Hendricks from Ohio, and Voisin. But the 3 new ones are Emmanuel Henderson, who had the second best performance in week 5 overall with 38.7 points. You had Vanderos move into the number 13 spot all the way from 46 after putting up 33.7, which was the 7th best wide receiver for the week. And then you have Surratt, who, as we mentioned, is now kind of back in the top 16. He's been here, once earlier in the season. He's back in after a 25.2 point game. And just for perspective, Surratt getting 25.2 points was the 20th best wide receiver last week, but because of his numbers prior, that pushes him back into the top 16. Ian Strong is hanging on by a thread at number 16 after only getting 9.5 points. But any thoughts in general about the movement here, Willie, before we get on to our picks?
Which I think if the wide receiver position plays a little bit better this week, which I imagine it will, we will probably see these bottom 4 drop off.
Even the
That's
ones
what I think.
Even the ones with the buys, you're saying?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Because 3 of those bottom 4 have buys, so I guess it just depends on how many. Let's see who's outside the top 16 looking in. That is an interesting.
Yeah, because if we look at last week, our 13th wide receiver Henderson, he was averaging 22.9.
Right.
So the scoring, it took a little bit of a dip at the position, but I think that's probably going to get back to where it's supposed to be. And these averages probably you'll see a little bit more scoring average closer to where Henderson is. And then if you're looking for who's outside of that number, we're looking at Milliner, who he's a little banged up, so I'm not sure if he's going to play. But you got Cyrus Allen, and you have Voisin again, Hendricks, and then Concepcion. So and then your guy Barnes.
See, I expect Barnes to bounce back. I'm frustrated because I picked him on a couple of different contests that we had going, but I do think Barnes is the type. He's had the season prior that indicates to me he'll be bouncing back. So I think if you got Barnes, as Jared does his freakout scale, I don't know that Barnes would have made his freakout scale because it was just one bad week. But I would say if you've got Barnes, it's not time to freak out. It's just you're just angry that he had a bad week when you needed him to come through probably. But yeah. That said, I lost, so I'm picking first here. I lost, head to head against Willie. So interesting thing here. With this being probably the biggest bye, not probably, I think it is the biggest bye week of the season. We've only got 8 wide receivers to choose from because 8 wide receivers in the top 16 are off this week. So with that said, we're not picking from too many players. I'm going to go right off the bat here and take my prediction for best receiver with the guy who moved up to number 4, Danny Scudero, going against New Mexico, who was 110th against giving points up to wide receivers. Looking here, they are also 110th. Oh yeah, sorry, we're using the we're not using the Fantrax rating here. This is the their ranking against in passing yards given up. So they're 110th in passing yards given up. They haven't given up a ton of touchdowns. They've only given up 4, but Scudero is going to get his targets and he's going to get his yards. So out of the 8 guys playing here, I think he's going to give me those points for doing the best.
Okay. Um, yeah, I'm not hating on it. I think I'll just go ahead and take my worst then. Just
Yeah, that seems to be the
just
strategy we
for
figured out now, right? Like you might as
right.
well.
Yeah, you're right. Just for the competition's sake.
Yep.
And I'm going to go with Mario Craver since they're going up against Mississippi State. They've given up 5 touchdowns, but they have 7 interceptions, and they give up 169 passing yards. So we'll say that Mario Craver is my pick for worst.
Okay. Yeah, and let's see. That'll be interesting if he has 2 bad weeks in a row.
Yeah,
After
how
starting
far
off the season so
how
hot.
far he slides from being number one from 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Right, right, right. So that leaves me with my worst option. Um, I am going to take a peek here at Navy. Navy's given up 5 touchdowns. Cade Harris from Air Force is playing Navy. He made me look bad a couple weeks ago. Um, but I'm comparing him and choosing between Henderson, who had again one of the best weeks a receiver can have this week in fantasy football. Um, but he's going against UCF, who's only given up 130 yards a game in the air and 3 touchdowns. So I think I'm not going to go against Harris again. I'm going to go Henderson. I'd say Henderson ends up, kind of moving back out of the top 16 after UCF shuts him down this week. I don't know that he's got it in him to do it twice in a row. I know we do have Jalen Daniels playing for us in the Kings Classic now that Mateer's out, so um, something for us to consider there. We have to have a talk about that. But a good thing for us is Daniels also runs. So if they can't pass, they're going to be left needing Daniels to run. So maybe I just talked myself into the reason we need to keep Daniels in the lineup.
Okay.
All right.
On the note on Henderson, I did have him as one of my worsts. So it was going to be him or Craver. So I do like that one.
Okay. Good.
So for my best, I had both of my guys available. I just kind of like what they're doing on offense. Except for I believe I got the wrong one. Yeah, so I'm glad I looked at that. Let me change that. Um, I saw just the UNC and just assumed it was Charlotte, and it's not. So let's change this.
Oh yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah, let's change that. And so that will probably make up my mind
They're
on.
64th.
There you go. Okay.
64th against the pass, giving up 208. Yeah, he's looking at Brian Westco from Clemson, playing
Yeah.
with Carolina and considering him. So
Right. So that takes it off the board since we had that little area. So I'm going to take Bo Sparks
yep,
as my best for the week.
yeah,
They get Arkansas State, who I believe is giving up about 267,
yeah.
and they've already given up 10 scores.
In the air.
Sparks is yeah, right, right, right. And then Sparks, he's coming off 12.3, and he really wasn't needed against Nickel State. So we go back to Arizona State where he had 14 targets, had 17 points against them in a loss. So he's going to get his targets. He has a much better matchup. Probably won't blow them out as bad as they did last week when they won 35-3. So I think Bo Sparks is going to be a good option for you if you have that opportunity.
Reed. Yeah, it's time for him to get back in the end zone. He'll probably do that this week, if I had to guess.
Right. I mean, he had that 4 against Eastern Michigan in their first outing, and then he's only had one since.
Right.
So yeah, he's due.
He's definitely due, and he's playing the right team to get that done. So now we're moving on to quarterbacks. Looking at last week's top 16, a lot of movement here. The most movement of any position as far as the top 16 list goes. You got five quarterbacks that have moved out of the top 16 and five that have moved in. We'll go through part of the reasons here. Let's start with the guys that had the worst performances, and you'll get an idea of who might have been on their way out. Um, let's see. The worst guy on the board was
Williams.
Damon Williams from Washington, who had 4.1 against Ohio State. Should be expected, probably. Should have been expected, I'd say. I believe on the notes Willie and I were looking at last week on the sheet, it said that Williams had a bye, so neither one of us thought to pick him because it didn't register that that was incorrect and they were actually playing Ohio State. So we missed out on an opportunity to probably get a couple of points or, for at least one of us there. But then the next worst performances were Marcel Reed going against Auburn, only had six, and Pribula had 10.9 against UMass. They just didn't need him to do much, I believe. And Hardy ended up kind of stealing the show there for Missouri in that 42-6 blowout that they had against UMass. So again, that's the dilemma of what to do when a really good school plays a really bad school continued even through week 5. Unfortunately, if you had Prabula, he just didn't have to do much and didn't work out. But Marcel Reed, though, let's take a quick look at him and see how he's been trending here. Seems like he's been a little bit up and down this season. Actually, this was maybe his first game where he had really fallen off, but because he had some really big games in the three prior. Um, so going
I
against.
take I take it as sorry. I take it as they had that big win, and then they had the letdown with Auburn. When you come off a win, 41-40, and then you kind of throw a dud out there as far as Reed is concerned.
Right, right. So yeah, I don't recall if he has a bye or not this week. We'll see when we get to the next sheet, but it'll be interesting to see if he can bounce back.
No, no, they have Mississippi State, which is not which that's the reason why I went ahead and took Craver as my worst because
Mm-hmm.
Mississippi State they're not giving up a whole lot either. So I just think he's going to have another bit down week.
Another down week, right? Okay, yeah, number 27, Mississippi State there. That's right. Okay. This is where you got some of your points, though. We talked about Colton Joseph and how he appeared to be one of the clear CFF leading quarterbacks. Last week, he proved that he's going to remain here. He's going to finish probably better than he did last season, and I believe he was a top 10 quarterback by the time last season finished up. He had 30.4, only outdone by Haynes King, who had 36.2 against Wake Forest, in what turned out to be a little bit of a shootout there that helped everybody involved in that game. But yeah, Haynes King just always seems to kind of get ignored mid-season for the last couple of years, and always seems to wake up and you know throw out some huge games along the way, right?
Yeah, I mean I think he was dinged up a little bit. A couple of weeks ago, I thought he got dinged up, but he still put up 20 points in that game. So,
Yeah.
and I'm talking about the one against Temple. Um, but yeah, he's just a player. I mean, he just is. And I mean, if you have him, you need to start him.
Right. Yeah, 4 games and not a single game under 21.9. So that's about as good as it gets. Going back to Colton Joseph, let's see what his lowest output this year was. Because
30s.
yeah, this is Mr. Consistency here. He's had 33.7, 33.5, 31.3, and 30. I'm not going to go and look now because we don't want dead air and dead time, but I would bet without looking closely, he's the only quarterback that's had over 30 every single week.
Oh,
But again,
that's
we can look
that's
that up
quite
later.
quite possible. Yeah, we could look that up later, but that's quite possible.
Yeah. Then finishing up the top quarterbacks from last week, the third best QB was Brendan Sorsby, the guy you've always loved, who put up 28.7 against Kansas. And he's another guy that is kind of like Joseph and King. Just the last couple years has been putting up numbers and seems to get slighted somehow. But he was sitting here as the number 2 CFF quarterback going into week 5, and he's earning the right to stay there by putting up 28.7 this week. So he's not going anywhere anytime soon either. Mediocre performance by Taylor Green was 16.4. I think the days of Taylor Green putting up the 40-point games might have come to an end. I do think he can get you 20 to 25 on a pretty regular basis. What do you think about Green there? And will he have any more of those big 35, 40-point games, or do you agree with me that he's going to be kind of hovering around the 20 to 25-point range?
Yeah, I mean, anything is possible, but looking at the remainder of their schedule, I don't foresee it being that way at all,
Yeah,
to be honest.
Coach fired, defensive coach fired also, for what it's worth. A lot of craziness going on in Arkansas.
Yeah, I think the most that you're going to be able to hope for from him is what he did against Memphis the week before, is his 22.3. That's probably going to be about the best that you can hope, just based on the rest of that SEC schedule.
Yeah, wow. How crazy is that for the people that have Taylor Green? You had the number 1 quarterback in CFF for 4 weeks straight, and then you might.
I'm one of those people.
Yeah, it might have just come to a screech. It might have come
but
to
it is what it is.
A screeching halt, where he's better served as probably your QB2 if you can get him in there as your second quarterback in those leagues that have 2.
Mm-hmm.
An interesting one here I want to point out is, I had predicted Bryson Barnes to be the worst, thinking, he's going against a tough SEC team in Vanderbilt. He put up 23.2, and that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is he went out of the game and put up 23.2 points in pretty much just 3/4 of football, because his backup came in and got, I think, something in the teens just in the fourth quarter after Barnes went out. So combined, the Utah State quarterbacks, I think, would have had about 37 points against a Vanderbilt offense.
Well, yeah. Well, that happens when the total score is 90 points.
Yeah. 5 to 35, which is another reason that you saw. You'll see on the next sheet. Maybe it's a good time to roll to the current top 16, because it's right in sync with what we're talking about. You've got the quarterback from Vanderbilt, Diego Pavia, who was not in the top 16. It wasn't really even anywhere close. He was number 30, shoots all the way up to number 10, because he also benefited from Utah State's offense hanging around and making Vanderbilt work for the win. Pavia ends up shooting up to number 10, like I said, from 30, after putting up, how many? He had
46.7. Yeah.
And his lowest game of the year is 17.5 for South Carolina. He's had a 27, a 22, 17, 28, and now 47. So, he's, I don't know. I don't think he's going to get another 46, kind of like Green. He's got the SEC schedule ahead of him now. But I think, he is capable of potentially, a couple of 25 to 28-point games. But he's got, after the bye, or he's got Alabama this week, then a bye. He's got LSU, Missouri, and Texas. All games that are in red on Fantrax. So, he might be there in that category where Taylor Green is, where he might have peaked for the season here with this 46 against Utah State.
Right, and hopefully you had him in, because, like you said, this might be the peak.
Might be your last hoorah. Yeah, I don't know if Pavia is a guy you're going to want to play for the next 5 weeks, and that includes the bye. You can't play him, one of these out of the next 5. So, looking at the other guys that actually, let's finish up with who left. We had, Reed is out, Williams is out, Hoover is out from TCU, Holstein's out, and Prabula's out. In is Pavia. Jalen Daniels jumps from not too far outside. He's been pretty consistent this year. He was sitting at 18, which was still very good for the season, and moved up to number 7. Same thing for Sawyer Robinson. He'd been in the top 16 and just barely got bumped out to number 17, but he's back in at number 8. The other one that made a big jump was Chandler Morris, jumping from 40 to 15 after putting up his best game of the season, which was, I believe, also in the 40s, if I'm not mistaken. He had 38.9, so just a point and a half away from 40. Going against Florida State, I think now we're talking about a guy who's in the opposite situation of Taylor Green and Pavia, who might have peaked. I think Chandler Morris is just getting started here as he gets ready to go through the ACC. He proved against Florida State, he can put up numbers against good competition. He the 39 this week was following 39 against Stanford the week before. His only bad game was against William and Mary, which can be written off to the fact that he probably didn't play much in a 55 to 16 blowout. So, started off the game with a couple of games around 20, 23, and William and Mary doesn't count really. And then now he's had back-to-back 39-point games. What do you think, Willie? I know you like him for a particular reason that I'll state in a minute, but what do you think about Morris for the rest of the way?
I mean, hey, 70% completion percentage. He's throwing about 30 passes a game. There's a lot to like, and especially with the schedule, like you said. He's just going to be one of those guys that he might very well contend to be in the top 10, which is, that's impressive for
Yeah, the
Virginia.
the ramp on him preseason was, he was coming from North Texas, where he was an actual top 15 quarterback last year, but we all wrote that off based on the system, saying, oh well,
Hmm.
he was a system quarterback. Of course, North Texas QB is going to put up numbers. He won't do the same thing at Virginia. Well, he's proven people wrong. He's not doing it the same way, but he's proven he's a really good quarterback in real life, which is translating in this case to, college fantasy football. I don't know that he'll do another 3 touchdowns. He's not that kind of a running quarterback. He did get a little bit lucky there, being able to get in the end zone 3 times against Florida State on the ground. But the week before, he had 4 in the air. And he's scoring multiple touchdowns in 3 out of his 5 so far. Again, one was William and Mary. So, in 3 of the 4 games that you would really count as situations to look and compare to the rest of the season. But yeah, um, the reason I said I knew you liked him is you. Luckily, there's 2 of us, so one of us is always paying attention in the Kings Classic. I had not put in any um, waiver pickups and didn't get to talk to you about it this week, but to my surprise, but pleasant surprise, you made sure to go in and pick up Chandler Morris this week for us. Now that we know we've got to survive without Mateer available for the next couple of weeks.
Right. I mean, to me, that was a huge get because, I mean, we don't know when material is going to be back. So getting a guy like Morris to sustain us maybe for 4 to 6 weeks, and especially, looking at their schedule, it was just a no-brainer to snatch him up.
We're looking at kind of before we make our picks, kind of quickly where some of the other movement was. We talked about Joseph and Sorsby being very consistent and continuously putting up these big numbers. Uh, they get the benefit of now being the number 1 and 2 quarterbacks. Joseph leapfrog Sorsby from number 3 to number 1. Sorsby stays at number 2. Taylon Green begins his fall and is now at number 3. Has a bye, so he probably will stay put for at least another week, and then we'll see him, I think, gradually fade. Haynes King has a bye coming up, but he moved from number 9 to 4. Mateer is injured. You probably won't see him on the list next week because he won't have played in half of Oklahoma's games after next week's. Um, Barson Barnes has a bye, but he stayed steady. Number 6, just barely fell a little bit from 4. Mentioned Daniels and Robertson making their way in. Arch Manning had a bye, so it'll be interesting. He actually moved up by default to number 9. So that's a good question, Willie. Will Arch Manning stay in the top 10? He's in the top 10 right now. He's playing Florida this week. He's actually, had a couple back-to-back strong games to get him into the top 16. But will he, I guess, one, will he stay in the top 16? And 2, can he maintain his status here in the top 10 going against Florida this week?
I'm going to have to ask for a let's wait and see type of situation, only because I'm really interested to see what Oklahoma looks like coming off of their bye, um, because if he struggles against Florida and Oklahoma can sustain with their defense, it's going to be rough on him.
Well,
And then it's
even just this week, will he have a decent game against Florida and maintain his top 10 status even
well,
this week for one week?
that's the big question. But I'm not going to give him credit for against Sam Houston. Everybody should do that against Sam Houston and with his 37.5. So I mean, hell, he was 18 or 21 for crying out loud.
Yeah,
I mean,
his big numbers have come against a pretty soft competition compared to
right.
Texas. San Jose State, UTEP, and Sam Houston. Yeah, I think this is a big test this week. I don't think he'll maintain top 10 status. I think he puts up fair numbers against Florida, maybe in the 20s, low 20s, 20 to 22 points, um, which, would probably drop him to about a 25 or maybe 26-point average. So, yeah, I think he drops to maybe 15 or 16 after this week and has, a decent outing, but not the best, not the worst, is the way I would look at it.
Yeah,
That's my
I mean, because I'm just looking at the people who are right behind him. You got Mavia, uh,
I,
Mendoza, Simpson, Minicucci, and then we talked about Morris. So, all of those guys are creeping up. So
right,
I just don't see it.
right. Well, yeah, he's got the benefit of Malva and Mendoza having buys. So, but even if he has a bad game, they stay put, right? So they're not dropping it, I guess, is
No,
what you.
I mean as far as like for the remainder of the season, as far as him being a top 10,
Yeah, and there's another one there. Ty Simpson is on the rise too for Alabama. Like he's kind of
right?
found his groove and his way there with Alabama. So, all right, that's the chatter about the QBs and who's moved around here a little bit. So, um, to keep this thing moving, Willie, we've got some idea of what we think about a few guys we already talked about, but based on that, who do you see having the best or worst week at quarterback, or pick one right now?
Well, I'm going. One should not be any doubts, and that's Colton Joseph. Looking at the averages, he is the only one that scored, 30 plus points in all of his games, and that's just based on looking at everyone who's averaging 30 points. So Colton Joseph, they get Coastal Carolina. I'm not really concerned about what they give up. Colton Joseph just gets the job done. So if you have him, you need to play him. So they're only giving up 208 or 209 yards through the air, only four scores. He should get every bit of that on his own this week.
Okay, I hear you. I'll go with a guy that I mentioned earlier that I could see sliding. I'll stay consistent with my thinking there, and I'll pick my worst to start off with Diego Pavia. Love him as a player. Uh, you know, love watching him, cheering for him, and hope that he actually has a good game. But I think against a number two Alabama passing offense, he's going to struggle there. He'll probably get have a better day on the ground, but not enough to make a big difference. And even if he gets some yards, it's going to be tough to get into the end zone. Alabama's even only given up 6 touchdowns on the ground, and they've only given up 2 in the air. So um, very unlikely he'll have a good passing day. You're going to have to rely on his yardage with his feet. And again, even if he gets some yards on the ground, he won't get to the end zone. So I think Pavia will have the toughest time this week.
Yeah, he was on my list for second. Actually, so my first guy that I have still here, and that's going to be Jalen Daniels from Kansas. They have UCF, who's sixth in the country, giving up 130 yards through the air, only giving up three scores. They have five interceptions. So it could be it could be a rough outing. So I mean, I know he had this bounce back game, but I just don't foresee that happening again
Yeah, and he's a little
for
bit of a
Daniels.
dual threat option. So I was looking on the running side. UCF is 97th, giving up 163. So similar to Pavia, that's where he would have to make up some ground in terms of the points that he accumulates. But also like Alabama, UCF gives up a lot of yards on the ground, but they don't give up a lot of touchdowns. They've only given up 4 rushing touchdowns as well. So
Right.
looks like a pretty stout defense there at UCF. They've only given up 7 touchdowns total for the season. So we might have to have some discussion about which quarterbacks we're playing there. Might have have to pull out the old Mississippi State quarterback off the bench for ourselves there. We'll have to
And
see.
like I said, I like the Mississippi State matchup, so that's quite possible.
Mm-hmm. Now that we've gone through this exercise, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So I've got to pick my best. Uh, we talked this guy up too. No need to go against him. He's been very consistent as well, along with Joseph. So let's not overthink it. Let's do what we did with the running backs a couple weeks ago. Uh, pick the number 1 and 2 guys to stay at number 1 and 2. I'll take Sorsby going against Iowa State. I just think, again, he's proven to be consistent. Iowa State's, pretty tough on defense, but he had a tough matchup last week and still managed to put up some points. So I think regardless of the competition, Sorsby's going to uh, do enough to continue to put up a decent amount of points, or a very good
Yeah.
amount of points. His
I,
low
I,
his
li-
low for the season is 24.
I like what his coach said after the game is that he's a man on a mission. So
Right.
we'll just see what that mission is. But you talk about completion percentage. He's right up there as well. So um, they get to play at home, so I think that'll be a little bit better for them. They played Kansas. I mean, Kansas played tough there on the road, but I think they'll have a little bit better outing, and I think this will be another shootout.
Right. All right. Well, I hope so. With that, we will now move on to the running backs. Among all the positions here, uh, we had only 4 that moved out of this top 16 and 4 that have moved in as far as new guys. We'll go over that here in a minute. Looking at our performances in terms of who we predicted to be the best and the worst, uh, I was pretty shocked by Smothers getting shut down by Virginia Tech. Uh, just didn't do a whole lot, so I got that wrong, way wrong. He only had 11.8 points. Then on the flip side, I picked Kawan Lacey to struggle against LSU, and while he wasn't the best, he put up numbers that would have been good enough if you had him playing. He had nearly 20 points against LSU defense. Um, on the other hand, you correctly picked Ahmad Hardy to had a great week. He's the guy that Missouri leaned on against UMass, and that's why Prabula did not have to do too much, as we mentioned earlier. 31 points. Turbo Richard from Boston College continues to surprise because he wasn't a name that many people were throwing around in the preseason or early season. He had 35. And the number 1 guy this week is a name we are all familiar with, Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame. Had a huge game against Arkansas with 41.7 points. Uh, and, after having the nice profile on ESPN in the morning, just capped off the day with, I think, a 4 touchdown game, 2 in the air and 2 receiving, which I believe I saw was the first time they said that's ever happened for a Notre Dame running back. Did you happen to catch that one, Willie?
No, I didn't catch that one, but he had more receiving yards than he did rushing yards. That
Yeah.
that what kind of shocked me a little bit.
Yeah. An amazing player, amazing talent, and a guy who wasn't far outside the top 16 the week before, went from 23 to 8. And obviously, you guys can do the math. If he had 41.7 this week, he's going to go from 8 to a much higher number this week. Our guy, Jonah Coleman, not our guy, but the guy at the top of the list, Jonah Coleman, we had a discussion about whether or not he could hold that spot because he had the Big Ten schedule coming up. And I think you and I were pretty open about the fact that we didn't think he'd have a bad rest of the season, but he definitely wasn't going to be, hovering around 39 points or 40 points. He would probably end up having more games in the low 20s, and maybe even in the high teens, for the rest of the way. But yeah, that was Jonah Coleman's outcome. There was 12.6 against Ohio State. Uh, the other 4 performances came from Eli Heidenreich, who only had 8.7 for Navy. I guess people have caught on to whatever they, gadgets and gimmicks they had there to utilize Heidenreich. Tesa has become the more consistent play, for Navy. Uh, getting closer to 19 points a game, where Heidenreich is not not doing what he did last year in terms of those huge outputs, like we mentioned, you're seeing from Harris over at Air Force now. And then the worst performance was Dylan Riley, who you correctly predicted would have the worst performance out of this group. And we talked about the fact that even though he had a 50-plus point game in week 4, we weren't sure, that was going to be the norm. Or 50 is not going to ever be the norm for anybody. But we didn't think necessarily he was going to be the true leader in that backfield even moving forward, just based on the fact that he got in partly because of injury the week before, would still be competing for carries with the other healthy back, and potentially just made a bigger mess of what was already a committee now is like a three-headed monster. So good job picking Dylan Riley as the worst. That's exactly what happened there, and you got some points for Hardy there at the top.
Yeah, I mean, he still had his 16 carries, but I just knew it wasn't going to be, 171 yards and another 4 scores. So it just seemed like it was easier to see a little bit of a fall there,
Right.
especially the way that App State's defense was holding rushers down.
Yeah, and then it's just for fun. Here's how it went in that backfield. Dylan Riley 16 carries, Sire Gaines 12 carries, Malik Sherrod 9 carries, Malik Sherrod 3 targets, Sire Gaines 2 targets, Dylan Riley 1 target. So if you throw in targets combined with carries, you know you're seeing these three guys almost have an even split in terms of their workload, and that's not something you want to be involved in if you're playing
Absolutely.
college fantasy football, right?
Right. And if they're playing from behind, you can't sustain that running anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see
Sure.
here. We mentioned that 5 running backs made their way in and 5 made their way out. The 5 that are not in the new top 16, which we're looking at now, Heidenreich's out, Chip Trayanum is out, McGowan's out, and Cam Edwards out. Sorry, it's 4 is the number of guys that are in and out. Uh, the new guys, we got some exciting names here, Willie. Hawkins from North Texas,
Hmm.
who you were fortunate enough to pick up, I know, in at least one league. Wayne Knight from JMU. These are both guys who came from pretty far outside the top 16, but have had 2 big weeks back to back each, pushing them into the top 16 now. Hawkins, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say he had a high 40s or 50 points 2 weeks ago, and then another 41-point game this week.
Yeah, Hawkins. I mean, the kid has just been impressive. He had 37.3 against Army, and then 41.8 against South Alabama.
Right, right.
And so he's had 6 touchdowns in the last 2 games. So
Yeah,
he gets a bye the rest of those legs, and then let's get right back at it.
yeah, and this one I would say is not the same as Riley. He and Hawkins both broke out 2 weeks ago with big games. The difference here is you I saw a comment from the coach, and I have to just kind of paraphrase. I can't remember it all, but essentially the coach was saying like Hawkins is a beast and he's on another level. And then when you
Okay.
have a coach, tooting your horn in that way, it seems like he's not going to be splitting the backfield with anybody. He's kind of worked his way in and is now proven he's a guy they can trust in real games. Um, I have to imagine they saw some of this in practices and his development over the offseason, but it's different when the real games start. He's now proven himself in 2 of those in a big way. So I think you see Caleb Hawkins just continue to get more volume and
Yeah.
more.
And I even shorted him a touchdown. He had one receiving, and you'll appreciate this little from Shawnee America.
Shawnee, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Wow, who knew? That's amazing. That's pretty cool. McGill did get 13 carries, but again, he's only competing with McGill there. Sibley has been hurt, which has given him his opportunity. Uh, and McGill's not getting any targets,
Hmm.
at least not any catches from what I can see. So you've got your new RB1 solidified there in North Texas. Um, Wayne Knight is also taking the opportunity to move his way up due to an injury. Petaway has gone down at JMU. Wayne Knight is back, has kind of assumed the running back one spot there. I think that one might be a little more temporary. I think Petaway might be coming back sooner than later, so you got to keep an eye on that. Don't get as excited about Wayne Knight as you might be about Hawkins. You know anything on that, Willie? Or are you looking anything up there?
No, I don't see anything yet on it as far as like how obviously how long it's going to be, but if if he can stay in for these next 2 weeks, I mean he has some prime matchups against Georgia State and then Lafayette.
Yeah,
So it's just not going to get much better if he can still be the guy for the next 2 weeks at least.
yeah, and I'm looking. It says Petaway is not playing this week. He's expected to return October 11th. So that's what I was meaning by the fact that the long-term potential might not be there for Knight like it is for Hawkins. If Petaway does come back, then you're looking at more of a Boise State situation where you've got a three-headed monster back at JMU.
Yeah, I
But
mean I could
take advantage while you can this week and next week.
yeah, I could see them, maybe needing him for Old Dominion since they put up so many points. But, if they could hold off and then get to that bye for Petaway, to me, that'd be the best thing to do. But I'm not the coach.
Right, right. The other new name here, two new names. You got Claiborne, who these guys you kind of you knew who they were. You saw them coming. You've known who they are because of their previous history, track record. Claiborne from Wake Forest was 17th, moves into 11, and then Antoine Raymond from Rutgers. Picking up exactly where Kyle Monangai left off last year, going from 22 to 14. And this is one we got to admit we probably were wrong, just didn't have enough information and took the wrong guess. We thought CJ Campbell would come in from FAU, be more of a contender for that running back one spot. It seemed to others might have been leaning more towards Raymond, and those others got it right, I think, in this situation. You're not seeing much of Campbell. You're seeing all Raymond for Rutgers. So again, we take our victory laps when we have those. Got to also admit when we were wrong. Great job for Raymond and Rutgers, and hopefully they can finish some games off. Though they keep performing well for 3 quarters and then blowing these games. As a personal fan, I'd like to see that happen, but a lot of CFF action for Rutgers for a change, and he's kind of the other piece of the puzzle. We've talked about the wide receivers, but who would ever imagine you'd have like 3 or 4 guys to be choosing from in CFF from Rutgers?
Yeah, he's definitely putting in his work. I mean, 2 touchdowns in the last 4 games in each game. I mean, hey,
Yeah,
I got my hats off to you when you do that.
yeah, yeah. So let's get the picks in here. I'm first. I hope I am.
Yeah, you first.
All right. I got a guy that I said I watched play the other day, was massively impressed, and I'm going to go with the number one guy on the board again here with Robert Henry. He did me right 2 weeks ago when I picked him. Uh, that's the week I was talking about when we picked Coleman and Henry together at 1 and 2. I'm going to take this week's number one guy. He moved up to number one by default because Coleman had a bad game and he had a bye. But I think Henry might sit here for a while because he's got the American Conference schedule. There's not a lot of monsters there to hold him down. That's a great offense, and expect him to continue putting up games closer to 30 than closer to 20.
Yeah, everything is going completely how I thought it would. Henry was
Willie.
one of the two that I would have taken.
Uh-huh.
But I'm going to go ahead and take my worst here.
Okay.
And this guy, uh, he is a great back. They are on a really, really good team. But to me, you hit the buzzsaw defensively. Wisconsin giving up 50 yards rushing, only giving up 2 touchdowns, and that's Haynes Justice from Michigan. I'm going to pick as my worst.
Okay. Again, I'm going to stay consistent with picking a guy that was part of the dialogue we had when we talked about running backs' performances last week. I mentioned Riley. No knock against the kid. I just think he's going to be, you know, going against a team that outmatches Boise State. That's Notre Dame, along with the fact that he's part of this three-headed committee. I'm going to go Dylan Riley as my worst. And you know, again, that's we said enough earlier for everybody to understand the background and why I think that.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm gonna throw a name out there. Turbo Richard was my other option that I
For
thought
worst,
would have a I just don't see him having another 25-point game. But just like last year, um, you know, those BC backs they can prove you wrong too. So he just might pull it out though. But for my number one for the week, we talked about him, and that's going to be Wayne Knight. I think he's going to continue to climb the board. They get a Georgia Georgia State team who is 132nd. They've given up 18 rushing touchdowns and they give up 227 on the ground.
yeah, that's crazy. I'm actually, oh yeah, well, Georgia Southern is equally as bad. I looked at them; they're 135th, giving up 16 and 262. I thought you had the wrong line there, but okay. Georgia State and Georgia go against any of the Georgia teams that aren't called Georgia.
They don't have the university in front.
Right? Yeah, Georgia, anything except the real Georgia. Go against
Okay,
your players against them. Okay, so there we are. We got the wide receivers.
running
We
backs.
we want to keep it the running backs. Yes.
Yeah.
So there you go, guys. Again, quite a few buys. Hardy's on a buy. Lacey's on a buy. Hawkins is on a buy. Cam's on a buy. So let's move on to the tight ends. This was there's some fun stuff here to talk about. This is where we dominated the picks. Willie, did you notice that?
Well, I mean, I thought I did. I thought it got better as we went down the list. I got 1 point for wide receivers, two for quarterbacks, and then four for running backs, and then four for tight ends. But yeah, this is where you got your 4 points.
Right. No,
Is here.
but we
Yeah,
scored, and all four of our picks got points, which is
there you go. Yeah, okay, I
always
see where you're
cool. It's
going there.
always cool when that can happen. Is when we score from all four picks. That's what the goal is for us
Right, right.
to each get some points around across the board here. I'm just going to skip to the one that I thought was most interesting. Um, Neither one of us were believers in the Iowa State tight ends. We just thought that one might be slightly worse than the other in terms of what they would do. We both got points here. Burkle, your pick for worst, was the second worst with 5.9. Brahmer was my pick for the worst with 6.7, and he was the third worst. I would
You,
say if I had Brahmer in a regular league and he got 7, I wouldn't be mad, even with Burkle's 6. But
mhm.
those aren't top 12 numbers, and we both knew going in these aren't top 12 tight ends for the remainder of the season. Um, they're gonna cannibalize each other. There's going to be too much split targets there. So I thought it was funny that we kind of had that debate of which one of them would be the worst, and they both ended up eerily close together, and we both got points for picking each an Iowa State tight end to finish in that category.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And then on the flip side, like I said, Koziol, it's time for him to just show that he is the number one tight end, and
Well,
he finished first with his 20.6.
yeah, he's our Kings Classic tight end. I got a little worried early in the game. You weren't watching, and I was, and I mentioned that I saw him limping early in the game, and you refreshed my memory of one of our old coaches' favorite phrases. Well, is he hurt or is he injured?
Right.
And for all of those old school football players, there is a difference. You can be hurt, but you might not be injured. And if you're hurt,
Hmm.
you got to play through the hurt. You got to play through the pain. And I love the kid even more now because he was limping around like he might leave the game with a bad ankle or something. It kind of seemed like an ankle, but he toughed it up. You couldn't tell for the remainder of the last 3 quarters that he had even gotten hurt in the first quarter. So hats off to Koziol for his 20.6. Which topped all the tight ends in the top 12. Dorian Thomas, though, continues to do what we said in the beginning of the season, which is not be a fluke. We said when he came out of the gate with like 16 targets in week one, you don't get 16 targets on a fluke. So something was brewing there. Nobody knew his name in the preseason, but we all knew his name after week one. And we said, go grab him, stick with him. You look, and especially after week two, getting another, 8 or 9 targets. But yeah, this guy's for real. That was a tight end shootout, if I'm not mistaken. The New Mexico State tight end is another guy we picked up in King's Classic. I can't remember his name. I think his last name is Lewis, but a heck of a tight end battle there in the rivalry game between New Mexico State and New Mexico.
Yeah, they ended up pulling that. I mean, they made the score look a little better, but it did seem closer than that 38-20 score, for
Right,
sure.
right. Yeah, and Michael Trigg continues to
And I think, are you thinking of Gavin Harris?
Gavin Harris, yeah, for New
Yeah.
Mexico State. Nice little head-to-head tight end battle there in the rivalry game, and he's another one we think will kind of start to work his way up and maybe appear here towards the end of the season. We'll
Yeah, yeah.
see.
You have a lot of Gavin Harris shares. I'm not sure why you don't know his name, but looking at the roster, you have plenty of Gavin Harris shares. So you
I
might
went and
want to put a
grabbed him
little bit
everywhere.
more. Yeah.
Yeah, I got him before this week too. I got him before the second big week he had in a row. So hats off to me for being early on the kid's name that I can't remember,
All
Gavin Harris.
right.
The big disappointment here was Jeremiah Franklin. I would have to say the worst performance after being one of the most consistent tight ends of the season. So once again, proving as as inconsistent as tight ends are, as soon as you think you find one that is consistent, they disappoint you. Jeremiah Franklin with a
Right.
disappointing 2.4. Burkle again and Brahmer with the other worst games. Koziol and Thomas with two of the big ones where we got our points. And then Mason Minnie, you want to talk about him for a minute, and then we'll move to the this week's because I know you've been picking up Mason Minnie shares. Speaking of shares acquired,
Yeah, I just like I just like that they just kind of treat him like a wide receiver. I mean, he's going to get you his 6 to 7 targets. He's going to get you his yardage. Anytime you can get double digits from a tight end, you take it. He does that whether he scores or he doesn't. And then so if he does score, it's just gravy. That's where that 17 points comes in. I just like the fact that he's just Mr. Consistent as far as double digits.
no, well, you may have just jinxed him because I just said you cannot count on any consistent tight end to remain consistent. So
Well,
we'll see if
you
he can
said
hold up.
you said that. I didn't say that.
Okay, okay, okay. Well, you're the one that's normally most frustrated with tight ends and lack of consistency. So yeah, we'll see.
I am. So I like the top three guys.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like that. But once you get to 5 and 6, it's going to be you're going to be picking your poison every other week,
Right.
in
Well,
my opinion. So
are you looking at the new top 12? Because I think based on what you've said, maybe the top five is reliable now. You've got Dorian Thomas now number one, Terrence Carter number two, Michael Trigg three, Cozy all four, and Mason Minnie number five. And then I think it gets tricky. Dallin Bentley from NC State six, Eli Stowers is back in from number 14 at seven. Rex Steiner from Jacksonville State is eight. Norfleet uh, fell just a little bit to number nine, and then Kanak from Oklahoma, the new name, stays at 10. Pittman is back from injury, moves up to 11. And then Justin Jolly here at the big jump from 29 to 12. But I
no,
think the top five here are looking pretty solid to me.
well, I would be more comfortable once they reach north of 15 as far as average.
15 points per game. Okay.
Right.
And you
And
got
which
the top
which
four
three
that
and four
rank.
are pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that, let's wrap this thing up. Looks like some pretty good choices. Some for who you would think might have the best week. There's some very interesting matchups. As I'm kind of shocked to see there's some Power Four teams still playing FCS schools. A lot of Power Four Group of Five matchups. I don't know how that's happening in week six, but
Hmm.
nonetheless, let's see. Do you want to take advantage of one of those matchups or
Yeah.
go with
Absolutely.
the guy you were just talking about?
Absolutely. Since I go first this time, I'm staying with the guy with the hot hand, the number one. They get San Jose State, who's 126th in the country, and that's Dorian Thomas.
Yep.
Uh, it's, they they're just not very good.
Mm-hmm.
So he's just gonna continue to show what he's shown, and
Yeah.
I mean you just have to stay with it. They've given up six passing. Let's see, is that right?
Passing
Making sure.
TDs,
No, yeah, I'm on the wrong one. Let me get back here.
eight passing
They've given up
touchdowns.
8. Okay. And
Sorry.
they give up 277. So he's going to have plenty of opportunities
Yeah.
to do his thing.
Yeah. And that is eight. That's eight. So they kind of definitely middle of the pack, but ton of yards. He's got a chance for a ton of yards, and we know he gets the targets. I'm going to go with the guy that I was a doubter in preseason. I doubted him a little more than you did. You thought he'd still be fine. I was looking more at the system at Texas Tech and how they hadn't figured out how to use tight ends properly in the past few seasons, and I didn't think Terrence Carter would make the impact he's making. Uh, but I love it when guys can prove me wrong. I'll go Terrence Carter as my best pick. Don't know why I didn't pick my worst here because I could have. But I'll go ahead and get Carter knocked out of the way there against New Mexico State. I guess that's how excited I am about that pick. I think
Oh,
it's a
okay.
great
Wow. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because if you brush over taking advantage of that, then yeah, I guess you were a little excited about what might happen.
Handed you the ability now to pick the worst player without having to struggle here.
Yeah, but with New Mexico State, they've given up 8, and they give up 247 also. So I mean, I like what's going there, and like I said, if you have these two guys, you should be playing
Yeah.
them every week anyway. Even if you do get a dub, but because they're going to bounce back.
Yeah, and
But
I'm really upset now that I'm looking at this. I did get a little too carried away and excited. There's only one real obvious pick for worst, and I have a feeling you'll grab him. And I could have taken him and Terrence Carter, but go ahead and tell me who you're taking for worst, because there's one obvious choice here to me.
yeah, I've gotten so my worst. I think I've gotten what one, two. So I've gotten all of them that I had that we listed down. Obviously, since we only do 2, but that's going to be Eli Stowers.
Yeah,
They have Alabama. You talked
should
about
have.
it a little bit before. Yeah, you should have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
got excited
um,
about Carter. It's
yeah.
okay.
But and we've covered that in the quarterback session with Pavia. Um, he still has been pretty legit. He's had one game, that against South Carolina where he had 7.5. Um, he doubled his normal targets against Utah State last week in that huge blowout, and maybe that's why, because he only averages about 5 targets a game, 4.5.
Yeah,
So I really didn't anticipate him to stay here. So I think, especially now, he's going to go back down to where that 16 range, in my opinion, and
yeah.
it's quite possible. Um, I mean, LSU and Missouri, they give up a little bit, so he may stick around, but it just won't be this week.
Finishing off here with my worst, which after looking it up, I think I can feel pretty good about this one. I'm going to go Pittman against Miami as my worst. Um, they've only given up 3 passing touchdowns, and I think he's just getting back from the injury, and he had a great game. But I think he can still have 8 or 9. But among the guys playing here, uh, everybody else is either very proven and really good, or has a really good matchup. So he's kind of the last resort there as a choice to pick for worst. But I feel good about that because he does have a really tough matchup going against Miami.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I was just going to say I put 2. I mean, I put four guys in each position, best and worst for all the positions. The only guys that weren't selected is going to be Wesco, which I talked about earlier, and
Yep.
then I like Connect as a sneaky one only because they have a new quarterback. They get Kent State, just that security blanket guy. So he would be the only one that was not taken from my list. Is going to be Wesco and Connect. We took everybody else that was on my list for best and worst.
Well, that was really, I don't know if you can hear it, but this might be a first. I went ahead and took off from where I had parked as I'm on the road here. I'm first time we've actually recorded any part of this podcast in our history while in a truck moving down the highway. So I'm going to wrap it up here for my safety.
Yeah, so
Uh,
yeah, let's not do that in the future. So let's wrap this up. Thank you guys for watching and
I
listening.
on the road. Look, the good thing is we're not on the video. My eyes are on the road. All I've got to do is talk. As
Oh,
soon as I
okay.
look at that last note, I went ahead and put it in here.
I got you. All right.
So
Well,
on that, I'll let you wrap it up for us.
yeah, you stay safe out there. Yeah, thank you guys for watching and listening, and good luck this week.